Welcome, everyone, to the launch of Best Buy Erotica, Volume 2. Come on, help me out. My name's Greg Newton. I am the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum. The Bureau is an independent, all-volunteer queer bookstore that we founded in 2012 and that has been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. And today, Evan Burgess is our volunteer helping us out. Thank you, Evan. And as an all-volunteer independent queer bookstore, we rely on both sales and donations to keep this machinery going. So I'm going to pass a bag around. If you're able to throw something in there, great. You can also support us by buying books. So whichever you choose, we appreciate the support. So there's some cash in the bag. If you need change, there's also a Venmo code on the back if you'd like to give that way. And anyone watching online, if you'd like to donate on Venmo, you can do that at BGSQD is our handle. So we have regular bookstore hours Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And we often stay open later on weekdays when we have events. On weekends, we usually do them in the afternoon like this. And if you're not already on our email list, you can sign up for that at the back of the room by the register or on our website, which is bgsqd.com. And you'll get a newsletter every other Monday about our upcoming events. And before I introduce Christian Pan, the editor of the book, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community House, which was founded in 1969 and located here in Manhattan. Donating to the American Indian Community House is one way for settlers and non-native people to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at aich.org. And the Bureau also recognizes Palestinian liberation as a fundamental part of our collective queer liberation. We strongly encourage you to take one of our free zines at the register about why we feel it is especially important for queer people to speak out in solidarity with Palestinians. So please take 1, 2, 3, hand them out on your way out. And that is it from me. I'm going to introduce Christian, and we're going to jump into this reading. So Christian Pan, I should also mention, is a Bureau volunteer. Thank you for that. Christian Pan is the author of 24 previous books of erotic fiction, including The Diary with Jenna Citrus, Wilding, Passionate Plume finalist in erotic fiction, Reunion, Passionate Plume finalist in erotic fiction, International Impact Book Award winner in romance, Stockholm Syndrome, Passionate Plume finalist in erotic fiction, At the End of the World, star recommendation for erotica, literally lovesick. What is that literally? Is that a category?
No, that's the one that gave the star recommendation.
Oh, okay. Golden Pigtails finalist for Dark Taboo Erotica, among others. He edited both volumes of the Best Buy Erotica of the Year, is a creative producer for Incision Press, and hosts the Pulse Session segment for the monthly podcast, All the Filthy Details. Please welcome Christian Pan.
Thank you so much, Greg and Donnie and Evan and all those here in the Zoom room. And thank you all for being here on this cold, wintry day. There's a lot of flu and germs going around, and just wonderful to be with you in real time and real space. I jokingly say that it took a global pandemic for me to become a writer of erotic fiction. I started in 2020, and at the time I thought, oh, this will be like a temporary hobby, a way to just pass the time creatively until things open up by April or May 2020 when everything goes back to normal. And obviously it didn't turn out that way, with the world, but also I found that the writing became more clear in terms of like why I'm doing it, what it does for me. And one of those was trying to highlight bisexual experience and identity in fiction, because I felt like I wasn't really seeing a lot of it. I would see a lot of nonfiction tending to emphasize biphobia, the higher rates of body dysmorphia, anorexia among bisexual women, the higher rates of depression and drug addiction and alcoholism amongst bisexual men. And I just felt like, but I'm not really seeing any of this in literature. I'm just seeing a lot of gay literature or lesbian literature, and I'm like, where could that be? So coming from the Bay Area, where growing up there's a radio program that says if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. I thought, well, if I'm not seeing it, then I guess I gotta do it. So I just try to create this anthology of bisexual writers trying to gather short stories about bisexual-centered erotica. And the first question that I got from people last year was, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like a bunch of orgies? And I'm like, could be, but it's like, it's not as though bisexual people are only in polyamorous relationships, same-sex relationships, opposite-sex relationships, or in relationship with anyone. Like I feel like it opens up all these interesting questions about identity, desire, relationship, intimacy. And so I purposefully did not answer that question last year with the first volume and said, you just tell me, like tell me through your writing. I want you to let me know through the stories you contribute. And last year we had a wonderful collection, which is also available for sale here at this wonderful bookstore. And we had 15 writers from the US and Canada. And it just felt like as a collection, it was so exciting to see this array of stories that were satirical, confessional, some involved poetry, some involved almost like political satire, some had all different kinds of forms. So in doing this follow-up for this year, we got even more contributing writers. We have authors from the UK and Australia, as well as the United States and Canada. We have a further deepening of diversity in terms of the stories and voices that are represented in this collection. So I'm really just proud to create this book. I hope that everyone gets a chance to read both volumes, to check out these amazing writers and what they're doing. And maybe by reading them, it just expands our ideas about what bisexuality is or can be in the world. So I think these are good questions to ask. So thank you very much for that little introduction. First person I want to introduce is one of my favorite people. I have to say, as a writer, it's often a solitary exercise. And, I've been writing for only 5 years or so, but like I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people through this writing. And one of them is a fellow writer named S.K. Kaba, who I'm going to introduce now. I strongly recommend you check out their books, in addition to their entry in both volumes 1 and volume 2. She's awesome. So this is from her bio. She says, I create stories in my head that I need to share with the world. I create love stories with interesting characters and situations that anyone can relate to. I delve into the complexities of personalities and relationships that just happen to be of either the same sex or same gender. I weave sex and love and passion together as one because the combination of all three is what we as humans crave, and it satisfies us. I love the complexity of human nature, and my characters reflect the notion that no one is all good or all bad, but we are all just trying to survive with the hand we are dealt. I believe in happily ever after, monogamy, polyamory, self-love, self-discovery, and internal happiness with your partner or partners, or on your own. I've been writing short stories since I was a child, but as I grew up, started my career, married and had children, I lost the part of me that made me feel alive. A few years ago, I decided to try again, putting pen to paper on a fanfic involving a dragon tamer who falls in love with his best friend, a bisexual forest ranger named Chris Jennings. That story is coming soon. So many other spin-off stories came from that one story arc, and here we are. Please give a warm welcome to Eske Kaba.
Thank you all. Thank you, Christian, for that wonderful introduction. He's also one of my favorite people. I'm always so grateful to be included when in this anthology. And so for me, it's so important. Sorry. I also get a little anxious. Let me push this back because I'm clumsy and I will drop this whole thing down so quickly. And so I'm just always so grateful when I get a chance to just kind of tell my stories through other people's eyes and tell other people's stories through the works that I do. And so my last story in the last anthology was also about a mom. I like moms like me. And so this one is also about a couple that just had a baby and trying to get themselves back out there and begin exploring a little bit. So they met some really nice people who are consensually non-monogamous, and they invite them to these munches and events and parties. And my good friends Hazel and Isaiah end up at one of these events, and that's how the story's gonna begin. Also, I'm just also getting over a cold, so if I cough through it, just forgive me. Okay. Hazel and Isaiah started attending a few of their events over the last year. Meetups and munches, beach days at Rockhaven Lodge Nudist Park, plus naked game nights at secluded hotels. Isaiah and Hazel were allowed to observe an after dark party 3 months ago and were fascinated as well as aroused. And they decided that they would participate during the next event, which was in the same hotel they were in Nashville. The two shared nervous and excited energy as they traveled 2 floors down. Holding hands, the pair followed the instructions to go to the end of the hall to the 8th floor where the rooms were connected. In front of the main door of the small desk was a woman sitting there with a bouncer next to her. "It's good to see you again, Hazel and Isaiah." She held out her hand. Hazel went to her purse and handed her the tickets. "Choose your first wristband," she said. This part made both of their stomachs flip. They had to choose how they were going to be identified through the night. Last time, they went for a red one, which was for voyeurism only. They were able to go from room to room without being approached, while others around them got asked to play. This time would be different. They knew they would be choosing a different color than red. More than one color, in fact. They had talked beforehand what their colors would be, how they would signal to the other participants how far they were willing to go. Hazel bravely reached her hand out first and pointed to the green one, full play. Serena went about the business of taking out the carton and fastening it to her right wrist. Then Sabrina pushed forward the second box. Hazel pointed again at the box, a purple wristband. That signaled her bisexuality. Serena unceremoniously fastened it to Hazel's left wrist. Hazel could feel the eyes of the men on her. Isaiah could too. He could feel the heat of jealousy lick up his spine, that one of those men would possibly be inside of his wife before the sun rose. Then he reminded himself that Hazel was not his to possess, and that she had free will to explore as she wanted. That's why they were there, right? Serena called out to him, taking him out of his thoughts. "Your turn, Isaiah." Isaiah stepped up and said, "Green." Hazel gently touched his shoulder and rubbed it as the green wristband was placed on him. He hesitated at the next box, however. They talked about it. Isaiah had always been afraid to explore his bisexuality. Unlike Hazel, who has had partners across genders, Isaiah had stayed within his lane, so to speak, until college. With his fraternity, there were some hazing tactics that warranted sexual contact with other men as a pledge. He found that he enjoyed that and continued to discreetly have sexual contact, but no actual intercourse, even after finishing school. When he met Hazel, who was extremely open and honest about her sexual history, he confessed his own bisexuality, and as experienced as he was, he kept that part of his life hidden because his Southern Baptist family would never allow it. Part of why he loved her was because of how safe she made him feel, no judgment, and was full of intention in everything they did together. Isaiah had no intention of having sexual contact with men that evening, and Hazel was supportive of his decision. It was the first time in that space as participants, and Isaiah was not ready to let everyone know, but Hazel's confidence made him brave. Isaiah avoided everyone's eyes and said, "Purple." He held out his left arm. He felt Hazel's hand momentarily pause on his back, then continued as if nothing earth-shattering had happened. Isaiah felt it was too quiet in the hallway, as if everyone was watching him. Serena wrapped a thing around his wrist and connected it to him. It felt tighter than the green one, or maybe that was just his imagination. Serena began to point around the room. People began to introduce themselves. Some were in groups and families, and each person spoke for their own group. "My name is Raquel, and this is my husband Will and our girlfriend Valentina. We trying to fuck everybody." I'm Nathaniel, and these are my 3 wives, Rebecca, Deborah, and Anna. I'm here to watch. I'm Jeanette, and these are my 2 husbands, DeMonte and Kyrie. I tend to watch what they do, but I might play. Let's see how I feel. The woman next to Hazel was next. A stud in a basketball jersey and a blue fitted cap that said NYC on it spoke for them. "I'm Day. This is my girl Unique. We intend to turn out as many women as possible." A murmur of laughs went through the crowd. Unique smiled and nodded in agreement in her short leather skirt and see-through blouse. When Serena pointed at Isaiah, he looked first to Hazel. Hazel smiled. I'm Hazel, and this is my husband, Isaiah." She reached up and touched his fingers. "And what is your intention for the night, Hazel and Isaiah?" Serena said. Hazel said, "I'll let Isaiah speak for himself. Mine is to step into my feminine energy and to feel sexual and desired by more than one person. I want to reach a sexual ascension I have not reached before." There was a hum of approval. Unique smiled at her. Hazel smiled back. Isaiah hesitated. He knew what he was going to say, but hearing Hazel's intention threw him off. I want to make a connection, a few connections, an intimate connection. He felt heat rise up in his cheeks. There was no murmur of approval or disapproval. Isaiah didn't know what to make of that. Serena smiled at him and pointed to the man that was behind him. "I'm Tim. I go by Tito. I'm here solo, and I also intend to make an intimate connection. Hopefully a few, but only one will do." Serena nodded and moved on. Suddenly, Isaiah didn't feel so dumb. "Are you ready?" Letty called out. Yes and nods all around. "Then let's play." The 4 hosts began to strip. As others around the couple began to strip and gather their bags to go to the nearest bathroom, Hazel sat there mesmerized by Sherwood's body. She thought it was just her when Day said dreamily, "I haven't had a dick in me in 6 years, but goddamn, I want that dick in me tonight." "Me too," Unique said next to her. "Shit, me too," Hazel said. She looked over and the women snickered together. It made Isaiah smile. "Fuck, me too," the man behind Isaiah said. That made all 4 of them laugh. Isaiah finally turned around to see the face of the man who was also looking for a connection. His skin was cocoa brown with a thin beard and mustache. He was still mid-laugh when he and Isaiah locked eyes. Isaiah touched Hazel's fingers again to get his attention. "I'm gonna grab a bag and change," she told him. She reached under the chair and picked it up. "Do you want me to?" He started. "No, I got it," she said, and she stood up. "Go play." She gave him a kiss and headed to one of the bathrooms. By the time Isaiah turned around, the man was gone. The next time he saw Hazel, she was with her new lesbian friends. After agreeing to play together, they went into one of the rooms that had an empty bed and immediately began to kiss and touch each other, taking turns. After her 3rd orgasm, she tapped Day's head for her to move on. It was her turn. By the time Isaiah had changed into a pair of flannel pajamas and a tank top, he sat on a nearby bed with a drink in his hand. Hazel had Day transformed, making sounds Unique had never heard from her before. It took Isaiah a moment to notice that he was not alone as a mattress sunk around him. He turned to his left and then to his right, the sister wives. All 3 were in white, skin tight, spaghetti strap nighties, and ended right below their butt cheeks. Anna was the closest. He turned his head to her. "Hi," he said first. "Hello," she said sweetly. "Will you play with us?" Isaiah smirked. "Can we touch you?" Deborah asked. "I want to take your top off." Isaiah turned to his left, but before he could respond, the 3rd one spoke. "I would really like to put my mouth on your cock." Rebecca said from behind him. Isaiah happily glanced up to see Nathaniel, their husband, sitting on a dresser watching them. He nodded at Isaiah. Isaiah turned to his right. Yes. He turned to his left. Absolutely yes. He looked behind him. Oh, hell yes. Hazel on the next bed with her new friends, happened to glance over and see one woman riding her husband's cock while another rode his face, and a third kissing the breasts of the other two. It made her smile. After his group activity, Isaiah cleaned himself up and walked around to watch others play. He walked into a nearby room where 4 men were going at it on a bed in pairs. One of them was Maholo, with a younger looking man in his early 20s, barely legal. Isaiah watched how smoothly he bent the man over. It made him hard. Someone noticed, another man with a purple wristband. He stood before Isaiah, blocking his view. Can I take care of that for you? You don't have to do anything. Isaiah, not a stranger to a blowjob, agreed with a nod. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get too graphic. When the man cried out, Isaiah found himself squeezing the man's shoulder roughly as he climaxed. The man stood up and said, "Thank you," and walked away. Isaiah found himself smiling at his heart as his heartbeat slowed down. He felt eyes on him and looked at the open doorway. Tito was standing there. Isaiah knew he saw the whole thing. I'm gonna stop there, because if you want to know what happened between Isaiah and Tito, you're gonna have to get the book. See how that works?
Stop too soon. Thank you so much, SK. That was great. So the next contributing writer, Maeve Blackhead, is another one of my favorite people. Their bio is very limited for the time being, because most of their erotic fiction has been in this volume and the previous one, which I hope is the beginning of a much longer erotic prose fiction career. They work as a legal research and reference librarian here in New York City. Please give a warm welcome to Maeve Blackhead.
Thank you, Christian. I'm going to read just a short excerpt from my story, which is called "Moon Dust Will Cover You." And when I was considering what I would write for this next volume, I really wanted to write about what it felt like to discover my bisexuality when I was 10 years old. And I thought, okay, how am I going to write about a 10-year-old in an erotic anthology? It's going to be problematic. But I talked to Christian and we kind of came up with a way that it would work. So I wouldn't say that this story is terribly erotic, but it really kind of speaks to that beginning of understanding one's sexuality and at a very young age. And yeah, so that's it. So I'll just read a little bit. Link played the French horn. This is one of the first things he told me about himself when we met on the first day of 7th grade. He was the one person who was nice to me at my new school. I had come from a progressive elementary school where I learned the lessons our parents and the adults who ran the school thought were appropriate and essential for primary school children. Things like how to write and mount an Indian shadow play, how to mummify a dead bird, how to design and construct yurts out of twigs and mud, and how to add and subtract using Cuisinart rods. My parents were aging hippies who reluctantly pulled me out of this utopian private school because they simply couldn't afford the tuition anymore. I entered public middle school like a fox stepping out of the woods right onto a major interstate. I was skittish, shy, and felt completely out of my depth. It didn't help that one of the first encounters I had with another student in the schoolyard before the morning bell rang caused my eyes to fill with tears. Some hairspray girl with stirrup leggings and a Benetton t-shirt pointed at me and said something that sounded like dirtbag. Then she burst into laughter, and her small gaggle of look-alike girlfriends guffawed along with her. I was sitting in my very first class, horrifyingly it was chorus class, when Link sat down next to me and introduced himself. The other kids, who all seemed to know each other already, had made a point to leave the seats around me empty. "Hi, I'm Link. Are you new?" he asked, as he opened his backpack and an explosion of papers and highlighters erupted at his feet. He was tall but slight, almost elven, like he had stepped out of one of Cicely Barker's flower fairy illustrations. But his voice was deep and soulful, a bass clarinet sound, including the random squeaks, and it was lower than all the other boys surrounding us. His hair was light blonde, and his eyes were a rich brown coffee bean color and very large. This combination of features was appealing to me, though I had no idea to decode what that meant. Yeah, I stammered. "I'm Margot. I came from the cooperative school. This is my first time in public school." For some reason, I felt like it was necessary to point that out. "Oh my God," he jumped up out of his seat a little. "I went there for nursery school." A group of boys sitting in the corner of the room snickered and hissed in reaction to Link's unabashed enthusiasm. "Cool," I said in a non-committal neutral tone. I didn't mean to sound cold, but I was terrified and untrusting of everything about this new environment. I thought anything I might say would prompt a sneer from the shooting gallery. I was used to a classroom with plush rugs, couches and beanbags, tables and a swing and a loft that was transformed into a treehouse, and kids who were trained to complement each other as often as possible. The sterile halls, lockers, linoleum floors, and fluorescent lights, and the buzzers going off every 45 minutes, the cruelty of the other kids in this new place all had my head spinning. I also didn't trust that this 7th grade boy who was being sincere in his welcoming kindness. Actually, I didn't trust anyone, mostly myself. Our choral teacher, Mrs. Benio, began the class just as Link was opening his mouth to say something else. "Quiet," Miss Benio yelped, so he shut it. Miss Benio had a tall blonde hairdo that I now recognize as probably a wig. She seemed to favor lipsticks in the coral family of colors, and she licked her orange lips frequently. Soon we were all handed sheet music and made to stand up and sing a song about the colors of autumn. It was tediously embarrassing. It was official. I had entered an adolescent hellscape, and I had to. When the buzzer buzzed at the end of class, Link told me to look for him at lunch and that I could sit down with him and his band kid friends. This sounded like hope of some sort, or it did until my voice of mistrust deconstructed and translated it into something sinister. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe he liked me. Maybe he would hurt me. Maybe I wanted to be hurt. My mind ran through the familiar refrain of doubt and confusion every time I felt I began myself making a new acquaintanceship. Still, humming just below that was the feeling of hope. But for what? The cafeteria smelled like ho-hos and floor wax. I had been used to eating my lunch outside at my old school, or not outside, if not outside, in the classroom, treehouse, or under the table, or pretty much anywhere that felt like my spot. Here the tables were red-topped, lined in rows. As I entered that first day, all I could think about was Link and the prospect of actually having a place to sit amongst all the other 7th graders. I scanned the bodies, the backpacks, for any sign of something that looked like a band instrument. Link told me he played the French horn, and I thought, what does that look like? Shiny, kind of gold and coiled like a robot's intestinal tract. That's what a French horn looked like. Yes, I thought so. And then I saw Link hopping up and down, waving at me in front of the table closest to the back exit. At the table were sitting 4 other kids, all polishing their instruments. I approached, my face burning, my heart pounding. "Hey, Margot," Link said, and "Hey, Margot," Link said, "sit here, I'll introduce you to these guys." Really, I thought, is this real? Is anyone this nice in 7th grade? But they all waved and smiled. So I pulled out one of the chairs, dumped my backpack on the floor, and sat down. I could feel tears brewing in my eyes. I had been so dismantled by the treatment I got earlier in the morning that this felt like some sort of gift from the universe. Really, I thought, maybe this universe doesn't really seem to care much about any of us. How can this be? Let me just skip ahead a little bit. So Link introduced me, or told his friends to introduce themselves to me. The girl sitting across from me said, "I'm Catherine. I play the French horn too." Catherine had short, dark hair and striking saffron-colored eyes, almost alien-like. Sitting next to the tall, lithe Link, I noticed that she looked round and soft, a little stocky and pretty. I could tell that her breasts had developed a lot quicker than the other girls, and I felt a sudden kinship towards her. My breasts had exploded the summer before, and I was constantly aware and embarrassed of them. Catherine, or Cat as I came to call her, clocked my breasts as well, and then she stared into my eyes as if she was looking for something she suspected might be there. I lowered my gaze. I could feel the blood in my face beginning to rise. I found myself continually gazing back and forth from Catherine to Link. They were sort of beguiling, sitting there side by side, almost like a reverse negative image. Long Link with his moon-colored hair and dark eyes, Sansi Catherine with her dark hair and star-colored eyes. Was I getting a bit dreamy about these two? I had no idea what I was feeling. I was only 12 and a half years old.
Thank you, Maeve. So the last excerpt from the anthology, this is a story I wrote called The Plan. When I was starting to write, another writer who really influenced me a lot was Guy New York. Thank you, Guy. I blame this on you. But he said something once about his erotic fiction is fan fiction about himself. And I think a lot of people assume that everything you write, if it's erotic literature or erotica, like it must be thinly veiled autobiography, like it's all true, it all happens. And I guess I'm like, yeah, but what about imagination? What about storytelling? What about all these other things? So it doesn't have to be just some kind of like documentation. So some of my stories I think are more directly about myself, and I think others are maybe more indirectly about myself. So this story, it's told from the point of view of a woman who went to a college or is in a program in a college in Pennsylvania, which I have visited as a guest artist in my other life. And it's also set in the Bay Area of California, where I grew up. But it's not like this literally happened to me, but I feel like that's part of the joy that I find in creative writing, is just using my imagination and trying to pull from these different pieces of, I felt this, I heard someone say this to me once, I'm thinking about this, what if that, and I just put it all together to some kind of process. I don't always know the proportions, but I just find it interesting and free. So anyway, this is the plan. I hope you enjoy it. Within moments of Kelly sitting down next to me, I had a newfound respect for pheromones. Jesus, he's hot, I thought. 5 seconds and I'm already horny. For our first face-to-face date, I had suggested a place in downtown San Jose that I'd been to only once before, but that I liked. The pours are generous here at the De Anza Hotel, and the lighting flattered. Kelly was right on time, a plus in my book, and looked even better than his profile pictures. A fact that already made him a cut above the few others that had progressed from match to chat to date. Sadly, I must admit that most times I connect with someone online, I end up being disappointed when we actually meet in person. I'm kind of shocked at how different they look from their online persona, and not in a good way. Why do so many people do this? Do they think they won't be found out? Why not just post pictures that are more accurate and recent? But it's not just their physical appearance, it's also the personal details contained in their profile. Sometimes, I've discovered on a date, that what they wrote online doesn't line up with what they're telling me face to face. Usually, it's about their relationship status. Instead of divorced, as they claim when we first matched, during the first drink they confess that they're actually just separated, which when pressed further, actually means they're still married, just not living together at the moment. At least that's been my experience. I mean, what the actual fuck? I mean, if you can't be honest with folks on a dating app about the most basic shit, then what are you doing? What's your motivation? Which reminds me, On his profile page, Kelly stated that his relationship status was complicated. I'll have to remember to ask him about that before this gets physical. That is, if I can summon enough blood out of my loins and back up to my brain to form a coherent sentence. Mind if I sit next to you? I shook my head, probably blushing brighter than an apple as he sat down on the leather sofa beside me. The cushions made a tiny squeak as he bent one knee and turned so he could face me better. His eyes a light blue, like clear skies on a summer day, the kind of eyes I could get lost in. The proximity of our bodies meant I could pick up faint traces of his cologne, some sort of musky scent that proved more effective at putting me under his spell. That or the pheromones. We had barely met, and I was already so moist that I doubt I would be able to refuse anything he asked me to do. Careful, Nicole, I told myself. Get a hold of yourself and slow down. You just met the guy. Kelly raised his hand. A gesture instantly caught the waiter's attention, who practically ran over to serve him. While he ordered his drink, martini, very dry, I enjoyed the few moments I had to look at him unabashedly, and with no concern over whether I was licking my lips like a bitch in heat. I probably was, but chose to surrender to the fact versus giving an actual fuck. His dyed black hair, identical to the color of his painted fingernails, was combed away from his face to reveal pale skin, nicely defined cheekbones, and pink lips. Obviously a goth kid back in school, a phase that had clearly continued into young adulthood, and one that would definitely work for him for many years to come. I always liked that crowd, those quiet, sensitive kids in high school and college who wore all black and smoked cloves and listened to Peter Murphy and Susie Sue and Robert Smith on repeat. Goth kids overlapped with the band kids, which was me in high school, clarinet, as well as the nerds, me then, me now, me in perpetuity throughout the universe. And we're always much kinder than those goddamn fucking jocks. I had had enough of those testosterone bullies growing up in Pennsylvania until I graduated and got into Wilson. Since college, I've just been diving into my studies, burying my nose in books. Let's be honest here, Nick, I thought to myself, smiling. That's not the only place your nose has been buried. But I was away from the Keystone State for a few weeks longer and wanted to take advantage of it while I could. I was working hard at an internship as part of my graduate program. But more than that, I was on a personal mission. I was looking for something different. I was seeking an adventure, something I couldn't get back home. Kelly turned away from the waiter for a moment and gestured toward the low table facing our sofa. Would you like another? I'd finished most of my drink, a local zin, and its effects seemed to be kicking in. That, plus the pheromones. I smiled and said, no thank you. The waiter left, and now the two of us were just sitting there, mere inches apart and relatively alone. What is he thinking? I wondered. Is he feeling this insane level of sexual attraction as much as I am? I asked him to tell me a bit about his day. I wanted to get to know him, of course, but also was stalling for time so I could soak more of him in. His clothes looked tailored and of a far more stylish cut than anything that people back in Chambersburg wore. The materials possessed an understated elegance, which made me curious about what he looked like beneath those layers of comfortable-looking fabrics. Did he have tattoos? Body piercings? Both? Something about his look made me think Asia. Then, as if on cue, I tuned into what he was saying. Kelly was telling me that after he finished his undergrad at Berkeley, he lived for a few years in Osaka, working for a travel company, before returning to the Bay Area and starting his own. When he asked me about my graduate program, he listened intently, and his follow-up questions were actually pretty astute. He wanted to know more details about my internship, how I envisioned applying this experience to my future practice and research. Kelly was polite, engaging, dynamic yet relaxed, an excellent listener as well as a good conversationalist. Oh, and did I happen to mention that he was totally fucking hot? Jesus H. Christ, I'm having a serious and immediate chemical reaction here. In other words, a pretty outstanding first impression. Kelly was definitely my leading candidate for the plan. Part of my master's program in clinical psychology required me to do a research-based internship off campus. My thesis advisor, Wilson, helped me find some options after discussing the area I wanted to concentrate on for my last year of college, as well as the kind of work I wanted to do in the field after I completed my studies. The internship took place during the final summer before finishing my doctorate, a way to support students as they begin to transition back into the real world. I chose San Jose for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was that this clinic was one of the best in the country for examining the impact of social media on the psychological development of young girls ages 12 to 19, particularly as it manifests as body dysmorphia, anxiety, and disordered eating. This was precisely the kind of work I wanted to pursue upon graduation, as I believed there was a significant need for help in this area, especially now. This internship in California would prove invaluable in helping me defend my thesis, as well as get my foot in the door for employment opportunities this time next year. But there's also the attraction of getting to live and study in a place so different from where I grew up. Northern California is quasi-mythological for folks like me who grew up in rural Pennsylvania. The Bay Area has always seemed to be the embodiment of progressive politics and open-mindedness. And if I'm totally wrong about that, just be cool and let me enjoy my fantasy, okay? Landing this internship meant I'd be surrounded by a lot of beautiful nature, an environment quite different from landlocked PA. San Jose is less than a 40-minute drive to the Pacific Ocean, not that much further to those incredible redwood forests. In town, I could visit the Winchester Mystery House, or drive down over the weekend to Santa Cruz or Monterey, look for monarch butterflies at Point Lobos. If I headed north, there was San Francisco. I could get a bowl of chowder at the restaurant along Fisherman's Wharf, eat some delicious dim sum in Chinatown. I could take a leisurely stroll through the Presidio, take my car down Lombard, that crazy winding street. This summer, I could ride a trolley up and down through the streets of the same city where they filmed Vertigo and Zodiac, take the ferry to visit Alcatraz, browse for some pocket poetry books at City Lights. I mean, come on, right? But if I could be rigorously honest here for a second, then I also need to admit that I chose California as the location for my internship because I thought it would be the ideal place to fulfill my plan. See, I wanted to find a suitable summer lover here, someone special in particular I could explore with, enjoy some serious physical fun. For some reason, I thought this would be easy in the land of milk and honey. How could it be so hard to find some potential candidates for my plan? Who wouldn't want a little friends with benefits with me? I'm 27, eat healthy, have good skin, I'm in pretty good shape physically. Yes, my major is heavily academic, but I still exercise and go to the gym, just not obsessively, okay? My roommate Candace says I'm like a female version of Clark Kent. She says I should just take off my glasses, get some new clothes, and show off what I got a bit more. That's never been my style though. I mean, seriously, are people that shallow that they need to see some cleavage before they express interest? I guess I had an inflated sense of self-worth because the first half of my summer in California had been totally dead. I clearly misunderstood the culture of my internship. This wasn't a West Coast version of Wilson College, a small community of students working hard who were all the same age, live close together. I was the youngest one at the clinic by like 20 to 30 years. And as soon as the workday was over, the staff ran to their cars to beat the traffic and see their families. After crying over this over the phone with Candace a few times, I relented and took her advice. I bought some sexy underwear, took some selfies, and created a profile on a dating app. I mean, I probably should have done that in advance, but hey, hindsight's 20/20. As the algorithms leaned into who I liked, what I was and was definitely not into, as I slogged through the app and what they considered a match, often making my head spin, I started to worry. I've been striking out left and right for weeks now, not finding anyone I actually clicked with, and time was ticking away. I only had a few more weeks to enact the plan. Were my standards too high? Were my pictures not sexy enough? Was I simply out of practice going on a date? No, Nick, I admitted to myself, it's probably something more basic than that. See, I've never been with a guy before. Not that I haven't had sex before, I've had lots of sex, just never with a guy. And that's all we're gonna do for now. So if you want the rest, get the book. So, thank you all again. We're going to do a few questions from Maeve to Eske and myself. So I'm just going to adjust the mics here. So Eske, if you want to grab a stool with me, and I have no idea what these questions are, so they will be very spontaneous.
Big stools or little stools?
Why don't you take one? Yeah.
Sure.
And I thought we could share a mic.
Yep.
And you can take one, Maeve.
Also, I'm loud. I'm from New York. This is what I do, so just say it.
We may not do that. Whatever you like.
I bet you can hear me this way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just in the middle. Yeah. That should be good. Yep.
So I love both of your stories, and I reading them both again and hearing you read again, I was thinking a lot about kind of the tropes that we encounter when we're reading about bisexual people, and especially in erotica. It always seems like everybody's game and excited and ready to go and feels great about themselves, and everybody's happy, and it's gonna just be a great night. Everybody's gonna just, like, no problems, no tension, no kind of self-questioning or anything like that. And SK, in your story, something I really love about your writing in general and in this story is you're giving us people who from the very beginning are a little bit more nervous, a little bit kind of Hazel's is thinking about her body, how her body has changed since having a baby, and how she's not really been able to kind of like just be herself as a woman other than being a mother. So my question for you, and for you, Christian, too, but I'll refer to your story in a minute, but first, SK, how do you kind of avoid those tropes in your writing about especially bisexual people? So they can be like actual, real, three-dimensional people.
That's part of why I write the way I write, right? So I'm not gonna say I never fall into tropes. I do, obviously. We started this conversation with how thinking about writing of erotica, it's like everyone's having one big orgy, and here I go writing about an orgy, right? So yes, I try not to fall into those tropes and those stereotypes, but I also bring real life human emotions and thought into it, and not everyone is like gassed up and ready to go. There's a lot of fear and trepidation and self-image stuff that happens when you put yourself out there, when anyone puts themselves out there, right? But especially if you're in a space where you're engaging in things that you haven't done before, haven't done in a very long time, then it becomes like how you're so subconscious about how you feel about yourself, how other people see you. You have this image, and we all do this, right? We have this image in our head about oh, this person is thinking of me this way or talking about me this way, and really, you see those memes, they're probably thinking about The Witcher or something. Like they're not even like thinking about like what's going on with you over there, but we're just it's the human condition. Like this is what we do. And as someone who lives with anxiety, like I know what that feels like to have to push past it and like step outside of yourself and kind of go for it anyway. And so I try to have my story just reflect that, that it's hard, but sometimes we just have to just like try.
I think that's what, for me, and your story in particular, like kind of it heightens the eroticism, is having that honesty in it. Because you are in an orgy, which, we read a lot of stories about orgies, but you tell us about how the purple wristband felt tighter on his wrist. And just that little detail, or her hand stopping when he picks that wristband, like these like little details that show us these are human beings. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Christian, for your story too, just it begins with this, oh my God, he's so hot, I'm so excited, but then we go into how much of a struggle it's been to find connections with people, and that's also a reality for anyone. And I think that kind of detail is often missing in erotica. It's like, no, it's a struggle to find someone you have a connection with, or to feel like, well, maybe I'm not doing this correctly. Maybe I'm not being enough of somebody else for someone to actually like me. And I just was wondering, like, how did this idea of writing about an academic kind of lend itself to maybe exploring the difficulties in dating? Like, she's not a she's not an influencer, she's not a she's an academic, so what is it like for people like that looking for connections?
As the story goes on, we learn more about Nicole's experience before going to California, and she's at a women's college in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, which is a great school, Wilson College. And but while there, she's been only with women, like all of her sexual experiences were with women, and especially this one key relationship, which started positive and then went bad. And so she kind of goes into this odyssey, I guess, of behaviors and ways of being with people, and then thinks like, maybe I should try like a guy, like maybe I could do that when I'm already in this new place during my internship on the other side of the country. And it reminded me of like some, I guess, two things. One is, I think there's often this idea that bisexuality in women is like a kind of interchangeable with heterosexuality. Like it's not really considered a separate identity unto itself. It's just kind of like a kind of prologue or appetizer for like a male gaze and to invite a phallus into the picture. And so I really wanted to like challenge that, but also look at what I don't think is, I don't see a lot of in literature, but I hear in life about women who have only been with women and then they kind of feel like nervous about being in an opposite sex relationship, which sounds similar to people in opposite sex relationships trying to be in a same-sex relationship or same-sex encounter, and like what that does for changing one's sense of self. So that was one thing I was curious about. And then the other was, I think there's a presumption that we, or I'll say for myself, people of my generation are just kind of don't understand the apps and social media, like, oh, I don't get it, it's the young people. Like they know everything about it. But a lot of young people are like, I hate these apps, I don't feel like I'm making genuine connections, I can't find anybody, it's all so I feel like it's actually not this kind of clean line of like everyone above 35 is just like analog and everyone below 35 is like totally digital. I feel like, no, there's a lot of folks who are really into the apps who are older than myself, and there are a lot of folks who are in their teens and 20s who are like, I hate these goddamn things. So I feel like I was like curious about that too, so that we can maybe question some of those tropes too, not just the tropes about desire and same-sex, opposite sex, or identity and all that stuff.
And that kind of leads me to my next question about how you portray, both of you portray bisexual men in your work, because a lot of bisexual erotica is focused on females, and you're bringing in a bisexual male into your story, and you as well. And what do you think about how bisexual men are portrayed in literature in general or in media? And what did you do in an effort to try to kind of like push back against that a little bit? Or be honest about how kind of maybe some stereotypes that people assume about bisexual men, and especially Isaiah.
You want to start
I was
with me?
gonna say, like Isaiah, the tension and fear that he has, like, oh, it's got too quiet in the hallway. When I pick this, like, everyone sees me. That detail was really beautiful, and I'm just wondering how you wanted to approach a bisexual male character.
I can go. Yeah, I came out in 1990, so I feel like just in the 35 years, there's been so much change in the world. Like this building that we're in right now used to be the Lesbian and Gay Community Center, and it was really a hot issue about adding that B. And I feel like, it's like on the one hand, the most recent Gallup poll is that the B in the LGBTQ community is the largest percentage of people who identify as queer, which I'm like, oh, that's good, that's progress, but it's also, I feel like, so where are they? Like, we feel like there'd be like these crowds on the street so I think it's still something that, especially men, because unlike women, where I think bisexuality is considered a acceptable extension of heterosexual identity or heteronormative behavior in sexual encounters, I think if a man like touches a man, kisses a man, desires a man, that is totally off limits. Like that is not, then you're just gay, you're a faggot, you are taking disease from the gay community, bring it to the straight community. Like, you're this double agent, you're untrustworthy, all these things. Yeah, I mean, like, especially in the early 90s in New York, during the AIDS epidemic, like, I was told by gay men, like, well, you have the pleasure of being gay and the privilege of being straight. And then straight people be like, well, you're bringing HIV to us. And it's like, those kinds of prejudices and hostilities, I don't think are gone. I think they just like change into changing history. Freddie Mercury's really gay. It was much easier to come out as bi, but he wasn't, even though he said it multiple times himself, he's not really bi. Now there's David Bowie, now there's Kristen Stewart, they're all really, and it's just like, even when people say loudly, like, this is who I am, they're like, no, they don't really mean that. We know better because I have a podcast, I write a blog or whatever. And I'm just like, it's so frustrating to even like within spaces that I think would be even more understanding, like a queer space, like that there would be that kind of infighting. And it reminds me of like the kind of relationship to some degree, although I'm not trans, to transgender identity. This kind of sense of like, well, no, you're not who you say you are. Like, we know we have more of a voice, we have more power in this kind of public discourse. So it's a long way of saying, I don't see a lot of just bisexual writers that are men or bisexual stories that focus on men. It's usually women to varying degrees of beauty and skill. So I feel like I try to do that as best I can, whether it's a supporting character or a central character, like just try to bring like more of that experience as best I can. Not that I'm like a spokesperson for bisexual men, but I think trying to, explore that. Even when I write a story with, it's just two guys, like even if it's a story that's a man and a woman, like just trying to like get into these questions of like your identity is not a reflection of like what you do. Because a lot of people identify as lesbian and they have relationships with men. A lot of gay guys say I'm gay, but they sometimes have relationships with women. Like I feel like it's much more nuanced and rich than these kind of handful of categories that we want to like put people into. And I feel like writing and storytelling is a great way to just explore all that, because I think it's the substance of a good story.
Yeah. So I have a lot to say on this topic, but I'm going to try to keep it brief. Before I met Christian, one of the things that I wanted to do in a lot of my stories was showcase bisexuality, men and women. And so a lot, not the majority, but a lot of the stories that I write have at least one bisexual character in it. And I do that on purpose because I feel like it's so important. I was someone who always felt like, sexuality is fluid. There's no one way to be, and there's no one way to have an attraction to a person or another. And so it was important to me to have characters that have a very strong voice. One of my characters in the newer series that I have, Chris Jennings, actually, he describes himself as pansexual. He says, men excite me, women excite me, people excite me. Like that's how he looks at things, and another story where these are two college kids. Jeremy talks about, that he has known that he's been bisexual his entire life. And so he's been with girls and now he wants to explore with boys. And he makes that like it's just a part of who he is. And so I always wanted there to be more voices to that. In the story that I did for the first bi Erotica anthology, it was a Muslim woman who, Vista has always known she was bisexual, but because she's a Muslim woman, she did what she was supposed to do, right? Which was get married and have kids and all these other things, but that didn't change her desire and her attraction, for women. And so, I want to make sure that when I write these stories that I am that a voice in a story that says like, I am firmly gay, and everyone's accepted, that there can be another voice in the story that says, I am firmly bisexual, I am firmly pansexual, and everyone just accepts it because that's who they are and what they do. And so I mention that because, you know, meeting Christian and reading how he put together the first anthology, and just the whole, I don't even remember if it was a forward or there was a back page, but just kind of like this whole, this like almost scathing review about how like people within the community are just, even within the community are so just like, you know, no, you don't belong, you either belong on this side or this side. And it's like, why are we doing that to each other? You know what I mean? And I just felt so strongly about that, that one of the reasons why like I continue to support the bi anthology, the bi erotica anthology, because it's so important that, you know, that bi voices are heard, that it's not, you don't have to be one thing or another. I wanted to also touch base on something that you said in terms of like, you know, when a woman is bisexual, it's really, you know, an extension of her male partner, right? To be able to please her male partner in some kind of way and not have like her own story and her own voice. And I really wanted to point that out in the first volume 1 of the bi anthology, is that, you know, when Vista is given, I don't want to say permission, but she's, you know, her husband just kind of says like, kind of do it, you know, explore. He does not have to be a part of it. Like that's her, you know, that's for her to be able to explore who she is. Like that is so key and so important. And I wanted to, I wanted to make sure people understood that. Like, you know, this is not about having your partner involved. This is about what you feel inside and what you want. And so I say all that to say, hello, like we're here, like what the hell? Like there's a whole community of people out there that don't have to get fit into a box or have to choose any way or being. And I also want to point out that just because if you know you're bisexual, and happen to just be in a heterosexual relationship, that does not erase your bisexuality. And that's so important that people need to understand that. You know, I just saw a Facebook post the other day. I don't even know this person. He just like put up this whole like really long story, and I was like, what is this about? And I started reading because he started saying, I'm bisexual. And then he went into this whole thing about his whole life. He's known he's bisexual, he's married, he has kids. He went his whole thing about it doesn't change anything about the fact he feels about his wife. He's not gonna suddenly turn around and just start, you know, having sex with men. Like he's been in this relationship for over 20 years. He loves his wife, but this is his identity. And he wanted to come out with what his identity was, you know? And I didn't even know this guy. I'm like cheering him on in this like Facebook post, because I'm like, yeah, like, of course, like who you are is just who you are. And so I also want to just point that out. Just because a bisexual person just happens to be in a relationship with someone with the opposite sex does not erase their bisexuality. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Get off my soapbox.
I don't know if we have time for any more questions. But yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what you guys both said. I feel like under the queer umbrella that we all live under, the voice that's the quietest is the bisexual male voice. And I think that I just really appreciate both of your stories and both of your other writing in general, because you're bringing those voices out. And maybe a bisexual male erotica anthology would, you know, just focus on that would be nice too at some point.
I'm with it.
So maybe, but that leads to my last question, which is what is next? Is there going to be another anthology? Do you think that that might happen, and you know when, or something different, or what? I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely have volume 3 scheduled. We release them always in September for Bi Visibility Day. So it's definitely, there's going to be a call for submissions. This is a paid call for writers of any degree in your creative career, whether this is your first story ever, or you're a published author, or anything in between. And That will probably go out in beginning of March or so, maybe February. But yeah, I'm looking at cover designs. There's a potential virtual conference I will be attending to talk about this anthology series, and also how I found the creation of the anthology is also a way to create more community, because that's another thing that I feel like is something I crave, is like, how do I meet other bisexual identifying people, or people that like talking about this stuff? And part of it is through writing and collaborations and making these anthologies. And it's a lot of work. I want to just shout out to Sinclair Sexsmith and Rachel Kramer Bussell and Olivia Lawless, who do multiple anthologies in a year. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because it's so much work to put up the call, read these stories, edit them, work with the writer, go through a few drafts before putting it into a manuscript form. But it's so rewarding too. I feel like I get to grow and learn and meet all these wonderful people from more and more distant places through this this anthology. So that's another reason why I want to keep going. And it's one of the most popular titles in my catalog, and I'm like, great. I'm so glad people are picking it up and reading it and enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I hope that it inspires other people to write more as well.
And Eske, what are you working on now in your own view?
Well, that in the introductory that Christian had did, and was talking about how that my fanfic turned regular story. It's actually out right now. It's called The Ranger's Magi. And I'm so excited about it. And you can get it anywhere, including here in this bookstore, just saying. So that's out right now, and I'm doing a lot of promoting on that. And then I am kind of sort of working on this BDSM slutty masochist kind of story. I'm saying, looking at that, and just some other, just kind of little, joining a couple little other anthologies over the year 2026. So I'm around, you'll see me.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
you both. And
you.
thank you, Bureau. Thank you, Greg and Donnie.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, online audience. Have a good afternoon.